G'day and welcome to Motley Fool's YouTube series, What I've Been Reading. I'm Scott Phillips from the Motley Fool. I'm our Chief Investment Officer here in Australia. And it's actually not what I've been reading, but what our team has been reading. And today to share his most recent read is Motley Fool Portfolio Manager and Analyst, Ed Vesely. Ed, g'day.
G'day, Scott.
Mate, I managed to spit that out. So it's been a tough morning so far. Mate, let's get into it. The book you want to talk about is The House of Morgan by Ron Chernow. Now, The House of Morgan, we're not talking about Morgan Spurlock or Morgan Housel. We're talking about a more venerable, an older Morgan. Tell us the story.
Yeah, look, it's a book. It's history and commerce, basically. So I love that sort of combination when it comes to reading stuff like this. I suppose you could talk about banking not being the most exciting industry in the world, but I really recommend this book because it covers basically the founding of this bank in the mid-1800s all the way through to the late 20th century. And it covers I suppose you could say that this bank is really there to help finance growth in the American economy in that time. But today we're talking about JP Morgan Chase. That's the company that everybody may know. It's the big bank that's run by Jamie Dimon. I think he's been there for 20 years. And by the way, the letters there are very good. But the foundation of JP Morgan Chase, as it is today, actually doesn't date back to JP Morgan. It was actually originally established by a guy called George Peabody.
Okay.
And it was John Pierpont's father, that's the JP, Junius, who worked for George Peabody. He took over the partnership, renamed it J.S. Morgan, before he retired, and J.P. Morgan took over, and it was eventually became J.P. Morgan in 1895. So, as I say, it's got a bit of history, but it really was it's a company and a bank that had a very strong reputation with its clients and helped finance railroads, especially in the United States in the 19th century, and definitely supported the US government during various crises that it had to go through over time. So it's a book that was actually, unfortunately for it was actually only published in the late 80s. So it actually sort of truncates a little bit. I guess you could catch up on the story of JP Morgan from the late 1880s yourself. But the real reason why you read a book like this is just to get a really good understanding of the history of, I guess, commerce in the United States from 1850 onwards. And it's a compelling read for all of the things I've just mentioned.
That's awesome, mate. Yeah, look, I can imagine. By the way, a little bit of I like the ego there of just taking over the bank and just changing the name because you're now in charge. There's something special about that. I don't mean necessarily even special in a good way, but there is what it is. But you're right, mate. I haven't read the book, but the story of Morgan, JP Morgan Chase, the story of the bank is hard to separate from the story of the US economy, right? The growth over that period of time. As you say, financing the railroads feels, at least now, like a little bit of a backward kind of, quaint idea. But it really was that opened up the US economy. And then, as you say, JP Morgan himself was kind of called on to bail out both in monetary terms and also just in confidence. We've seen Warren Buffett being used as kind of the backstop for the US economy, at least from a confidence perspective. A couple of generations ago, it was JP Morgan himself and the bank more broadly that actually was used by the US government in those kind of twin roles, right?
Absolutely. And look, his son too, Jack Morgan, also a J. Morgan. Jack Morgan also was very influential in running this business through World War I and beyond as well. So you do get a very good detailed historical, I guess, summary of how this bank has performed as a business, but also as an institution. It wasn't just a place that you could roll up to and open up a bank account. It was mainly financing for governments and other large corporates, including those railroads. And look, just another little thing that I've always wondered about myself, Scott, is I know about JP Morgan, but I've always wondered what's Morgan Stanley. There's a name there that's interesting, isn't it? And in the UK, there's another business called Morgan Grenfell.
Right.
Well, they're actually all linked, and there's a historical legacy there, which you can read about in this book. Basically, there was the Glass-Steagall Act of 1933, which separated commercial investment banking. So you have the original JP Morgan on one side, which is the commercial bank, and then you've got Morgan Stanley, which became the investment bank. And as far as London is concerned, Morgan Grenfell was a London-based merchant bank, which was also a part of the so-called House of Morgan. And so it's got its ties, again, going back to the 1850s and onwards from that point. So I guess the things that I get out of this book is that reputation is really important for any business. JP Morgan did have, and I still think today, obviously has a very good reputation. It's built that over more than a century of helping the government to finance growth and business to finance growth. But it's also had to adapt And that's come about due to, I think, strong leadership, despite there being some sort of, you could actually take the view that perhaps there was a bit of nepotism here, but each of the Morgans actually were there and were very influential on their own terms, and were able to help grow this business into what it is today. It's an $800 billion company today, by the way. So it's up there. And I actually looked at the returns for JP Morgan Chase, and I was actually quite surprised to see how well it has done recently. I don't think of banks as being a high growth industry, but from 1850 onwards through to today, it's been a remarkable story.
Very, very cool, mate. As an investor, was there anything that you kind of took from that kind of changes the way you're investing, or is this one of those books that you go, really cool business story, like knowing a bit of the history, put some things in context?
Oh, I do think it does help me focus on the long term. Obviously 170 years or so is a long time. And of course, it wasn't always a listed business as such. But I think if you took the view that the bank, it's still going to be there and help grow the American economy as will its competitors. I still think the biggest takeaway I get from this is that the long term does count, and businesses can thrive and survive as long as they have a good reputation and good leadership.
I like that, mate. Really, really important. Hey, by the way, if you're watching this and you're enjoying it, please do us a favor. If you like the video, hit the like button for me. Also, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. What that means is you'll receive a notification, obviously, every time we release some great content like this, What I've Been Reading series, but also plenty more besides. We do Motley Fool TV. We do Stocks in Focus once a week. Once a month, we do Stock of the Month. We pull back the curtain on an actual Motley Fool buy recommendation. So if you want more, I hope you do. If you're enjoying this, and I'm sure you are, please do those things. Like the video for us. By the way, it helps other people find it, which is good for us and good for them. But if you subscribe and hit the notification bell, you'll see that new content as soon as it's available on your device of choice. Ed, thanks for spending some time going through The House of Morgan by Ron Chernow. Much appreciated. And until next time, Fuller.